Everybody, welcome to the Orange is the New Black podcast. This is your man Zim I got my man Ace Boogie here. We're like still feeling the after effects of the loss this past week. If you don't know, the Bengals took a major L to the 49ers. I don't even really remember the final score. Was it 41-17, I think?
Yep, 41-17.
Could have been 60-10. It was really bad. But just to discuss, like I was talking to Ace off the record, I just think overall, picture-wise, before we start talking about the game, the worst thing that could happen to this fan base is to feel like we were deceived by having like a good showing in week one, and then to come back and just on your home opener just get annihilated like that and make it feel like you're not even at home. Like, you know, like what a diehard Bengal fan is the Bengal fan, or a casual fan that was given the tickets are the only two groups of people that even go to a Bengals fan right now. So imagine if you're a diehard Bengal fan and you're going to a game like that and you're outnumbered at home and you get killed. I mean, everybody that I know left probably like third quarter. Ace, you were there at the game. Tell people about the experience there and how you feel walking away.
So let me break down a few things. The first thing is, originally before this game started, the Bengals fans did outnumber the 49ers fans. The 49ers fans, I tip my hat to them. They travel well. I actually also flew in, so I also flew out. So I noticed that there were a lot of their fans that actually traveled to the game. Now, before the game, the atmosphere, the energy in the city was really on fire. There was a lot of excitement. You could really just feel it. Like the day before the game, I went to Cook's Sporting Goods. Like there were a lot of fans out there buying merch for the game. There was a lot of, Bengals fans that were showing their knowledge and history of the game. They were giving out a lot of jerseys for old players that played in 2005 through that era, the Carson era, essentially. I grabbed the Odell Thurman jersey, things of that nature. And there were a lot of fans that were really excited. Like I saw a lot of jerseys. I saw a lot of people that were looking forward to this game, a lot of people that were talking about they were going to the game. It was hard in some instances to get tickets that were closer to the lower level. Going into the game, I felt like I was at home, man, like just going around through all of the pregame festivities and interacting with fans and people coming up to me. Like, we were excited going into this game. The thing that sucked, bro, was to go to that game, to have the city be there and supporting them. And, the fans were putting in their work initially at the beginning of the game. When things were close, when they needed us to yell defense, we showed up. When they needed us to be loud, if you recall, there were a couple penalties that the San Francisco 49ers had. That was due to the crowd noise. Where I was sitting at, which was on the home side, that was mostly Bengals fans. Now, the 49ers fans, they were heavy on the visitor side, but it wasn't an aspect where they outnumbered us. And I know a lot of people watching it from the crib in the third quarter, you were like, wow, you can hear 49ers fans talking. That is because after the third quarter, a lot of people got frustrated. A lot of boos didn't start to come out until around that third quarter. A little bit at the end of the second half, mostly for the offense not being able to move after the defense was able to do things. A lot of people, as a fan, I was super frustrated with the missed tackles, the 49ers just being able to do exactly what they wanted to do, the offense from the Bengals not responding. And I think the tipping point really was that third quarter, because a lot of people still stuck there for the game. I heard Joe Mixon say that fans were leaving when they were up 11. I did not see that. That did not happen. The fans did not start to leave until the third quarter, when the 49ers came out and the Bengals just being there, you could see like the Bengals just, I don't want to say quit, but they didn't do anything to stop them from going down the field and scoring. And I think once the Bengals got the ball back and they did nothing, a lot of fans started to head towards the exit. So me, myself, I did not leave until it was 41-10. Like, if a guy like me, I'm a diehard, like I saw diehards. I saw the guys that you guys see on TV when the camera pans to, your diehard Bengals fan. I saw these guys leaving frustrated. Like, once it was 41-10, there was just no heart left. Like, the entire stadium for the Bengals fans were quiet because the Bengals couldn't do anything. And once that happened, the 49ers fans started to wake up. You started to hear that crowd that was on the left side start to make noise because the Bengals gave the fans no hope and nothing to cheer for an entire game. It was at the point where, you're throwing up a montage to get the fans to yell defense after you just gave up a 30-yard run. And you could have stopped them. You could have had them hit in the backfield, and nobody made a play. So from a fan standpoint, it was just extremely frustrating because this city, and people want to talk about the fans were there before the game and during the game. When that third quarter happened and there was no change from the first half and what happened in the second half, fans just really reached their boiling point. Like, I literally got on a plane, traveled, did all of this stuff, shot a vlog and everything, and I even was just like, I can't stay here and watch this. I can't stay here and watch this. It was extremely frustrating because they showed absolutely no fight. The San Francisco 49ers fans were essentially like, at first there were guys that were it got to the point where some of their fans felt bad for us and didn't even say anything too loud, on the side of the Bengals fans. So for me, it was just like, wow, it was really just a very embarrassing moment for Houday Nation, and it just was like all of our dreams, all of our optimism was sucked away in one game. And it just, I really felt bad. I really looked at the people next to me. A lot of people started leaving. A lot of people were angry and upset. And the one thing that I said that I wasn't going to do was I wasn't going to participate in the booing. But I will be damned to sit here and criticize people who were booing, because that team deserved to be booed on Sunday. By the way that they came out and played, there was no energy. It just was a piss-poor game. For one thing, it's one thing to get blown out on the road. It's another to let somebody come into your hometown and just massacre you, and for it to not even be close. I know I went off on a tangent then, but I just had to kind of vent my perspective of what actually happened there, because I feel like they're trying to twist this narrative like the fans didn't have their backs, and that was far from the case if you were actually there.
I mean, watching it from home, I mean, I do the Harry Nuts game live on Sunday. I mean, everything you're saying matches up with what we had. I mean, pure excitement. I will admit I was a little Sunday morning. I was a little skeptical. I started looking at some stuff, and I'm like, man, the front. And then I kept on making some comments to people. I'm like, I don't know about this front. And then as the game kind of went along, and then Andre Smith goes out, and then Jerry comes in and stuff like that. I'm just like, you cannot quick screen this. You cannot so that's where the offensive line really veered his head. But even before the game and all that stuff like that, the energy from the live stream that I do was really good. I mean, we were probably at 300 people. As soon as I started up the live, I start right at 1. Like 5 minutes to 1. When I started the live, I was at 200 people as soon as it started. People were like, yeah, let's get this dub. Let's get this dub. Everybody felt the same exact way. By the time I think it started to hit people when a couple guys started going down, and I was given scenarios on how they could fix it, but I'm going to tell you the turning point, and I know people are going to try to kill me for this. The biggest I'm not even going to say the turning point. The turning point was how the game started. You had a special teams penalty. Then you go in there, you get sacked. It just started off too bad. So the one thing that I always talk about is, switching field position and stuff like that. You just started off on a very, very, very wrong foot. And I think the players, if you look at all their quotes from last week, I mean, Drake Kirkpatrick, I not even spoke on this, actually said that they were going to win after they after they lost to Seattle. So a lot of these guys were really feeling themselves and feeling like it was a done deal. And I think when Kyle Shanahan came in there and just started throwing those plays at them that they couldn't defend, it was just like this moment where they were just like, oh my God, we're caught in the matrix. This is last year all over again. And I think the defense like really felt that like early on because they were just put behind the eight ball early. Even after the first Bengals drive where, you know, we actually do score a touchdown and everything like that, the what I was kind of hinting at is I think this big turning point was when it was a chance for the Bengals to get 3 points before the half, and Dalton throws that pick, like on the sideline or something. Wasn't that on the sideline? And then they come back and they get 3 points and they get the ball in the third quarter. It was just like, it's just like you talk about a swing. Like, and I say people are going to kill me because they're going to say, Jim, the defense. Like, make no question about it. We could have scored 40. They would have scored 60. Like, us scoring 40 would have just put them on would have gave them the ball more, and they would have carved us up. So it's totally on the defense. Like, that's one thing I want to make very clear. It's totally on the defense. But the offense did nothing to aid them, and they put them in some really bad positions where last week they weren't putting them in bad positions. It was like they would get a 3-and-out. The offense, even if they didn't score, which we didn't see, they drove all the way down the field. Those long drives, control the time of possession. Even if they didn't score a touchdown, it's like they gave the defense a breather. The humidity there is showed on TV. Every play, hands on hip. Geno Atkins, I made a comment to somebody. That is the worst. That's the slowest I've ever seen him. Now, he did have a bunch of impact plays throughout the game, but that is the absolute slowest I've ever seen him look. Like, I had a lot of comments to me in the live stream and in my DMs or whatever where people were just saying, is it me? But does he just look like fat? Like, it was one play I thought it was Dylan's. Like, he was, like, giving chase to Jimmy G. It wasn't even close. And I was just looking like, man. That game my mind is so all over the place. But there's so many people at fault. Special teams was horrible. Defense was the worst. Let me give you guys a stat. They gave up 6 plays over 34 yards. That is the most in the Super Bowl era. That is the most 30 plus plays given up in the last 50, 60 years. In that one game. If people reference last year, right, in that stretch where they gave up those 3 games that were 500 and 600 yards, the Tampa Bay was the Chiefs, and I forgot the other team. Might have been the Falcons. I don't remember the stretch. That 3-game stretch where everybody said the defense is absolutely horrible, right? In those 3 games, they gave up 6 total plays of 34 yards or more. So so that one game, they gave up 30 yards or more. Like, I was playing fantasy football. The guy I was playing had the San Francisco 49ers running backs on the bench. And all of them had 30, 40 points. Like, every single one. Even the guy, Wilson Jr.
Right.
They're all scoring. Like, everybody's running wild. Everybody's running free. There's no accountability. After the game, Preston Brown made the first comment that I felt like, okay, here we go. He says that Zach Taylor, he said, yeah, we knew what they were going to do. They only ran 5 plays. But the opposition countered every single thing that we were going to do, pretty much saying that, hey, we got outcoached. They only ran 5 plays. And I said that at home. They kept on running a little bubble screen on the left, and they didn't run that. And if you came out there and faked that, they handed it off on an RPO. And the guys were getting 20 yards of carry out there. Like, it was a disaster. And it was like, I feel like bad teams, this is how you know you're a bad team, is when things like that start to mount up, you could just see the energy and you could just feel like they're tapping into the team's history. And they're not looking at, like, what's in front of them right there. And that was very apparent throughout the whole game. I felt like guys like Tyler Boyd and other guys like that had the energy throughout the whole game. They just didn't have a way to get the ball. You know, like, there are some guys that I could single out that I feel like they were, you know, like, I think, like Hubbard, like, when they kick him inside, he is nothing. When the times that they kicked him inside, he got punished. Like, for all the good praise that we have for the defense in the first game, it just was like a complete nightmare. and all the deficiencies of this team from last year, pretty much bringing back the same entire team. They all reared its ugly head on Sunday.
Right. I think for me personally, I think all three aspects of the game, the Bengals were horrible. You talk about the offense, you talk about the penalties, the constant third and longs. When the defense did make a play, they never capitalized. You talk about the William Jackson interception. You talk about the missed field goals. You talk about the lack of, field position from special teams play. They failed in all three phases of the game. They also, like you said, were outcoached. It was not even close.
Outcoached like to the T. And you mentioned field goals. As much as we hate Fat Randy, it's the same thing that I said last week. What did they do to help Fat Randy in those instances? Every single time when he goes to kick these long field goals and he misses, it's always a penalty or it's always a bad play call to make it a worse situation than what it had to be.
Right. And I just feel like there was nothing from this game that spoke to me in terms of that. Penalties killed them the entire game. The offensive line, they lost Andre Smith. Yeah, they lost Michael Jordan. When those guys were in there, they did absolutely nothing to help Joe Mixon open any kind of pathway at all. Seeing that live was just ridiculous. Joe Mixon is one of the guys that gets the crowd pumped up. He was one of the guys who came over before the game even kicked off and told the fans that we had to be loud. He kind of got us revved up for it. They absolutely had no type of play for him to get loose. And on his longest plays that he had, they were all negated by penalties. He had a screen catch where he had a pretty good catch and run. He had a run, like his longest run of the day was called back.
Yeah.
The 49ers run game was completely unstoppable, and it was so frustrating to see it live, to see guys be right in front of the guy or have a guy in the backfield and not make the tackle. So many missed tackles in this game.
So the missed tackles are maddening. Like, did you see the Kittle stiff arm?
Yes.
When
he's running stiff arm on Drake.
I need a picture of that. If anybody's got a picture of that, like, that is like, didn't he look like, that looked like he was playing against high school football players at that very instance. When he caught that, he brushes off, what is that, Preston Brown, I think, first, and then stiff arms Drake Kirkpatrick, and then they just look so small.
And I don't even want to, obviously we all know that Dre didn't have the best game, but a lot of guys were missing tackles. This game plan, if you look back at the game and watch the film, they attacked the edges. They completely attacked the edges when it came to runs and things of that nature. They really didn't start running it up the middle until the second half. They just completely went at Drake Kirkpatrick and William Jackson on the edges, and they knew that they couldn't run to the inside, so they bounced it to the outside. Like I said,
and see, last week, you know what's so crazy, though? Last week, though, Seahawks tried it a couple times and they got away from it, where they tried to do these toss plays on the outside or whatever, and it was not working at all. You had so much penetration, but I think that was because of the lack of the speed. You didn't have a good one yet. That's what I kept on telling people, like, I don't think the Seahawks are really that good of a team. Like, DK Metcalf is not scaring any. DK Metcalf and Auden Tate, to me, are like the same player. Like, they're good at what they do, high pointing of football, but you can easily one-on-one them and scheme them. And so from the running game and stuff like that, you didn't have any support that was needed on a lot of those plays, so you could put William Jackson on an island. But like you said, the 49ers they saw that on tape. They said, we're going to make them defend every inch of that field. And all these, like the questions from Jesse Bates' tackling skills and stuff like that were happening on draft day or whatever, they started to rear his head. There are a lot of different questions now that I have. And the biggest question is, why did we re-sign Dunlap and Atkins if you're now at this point where you're now thinking like, this is who we are? A lot of the players kept on saying, we know that this isn't who we are, whatever. I don't know. You had this same thing happen last year, and you played just like this.
Right.
This might be who you are, and I know nobody wants to hear blowing it up, but dude, you about to go into a 2-0 Buffalo team coming up next week, and then you got Pittsburgh on Monday night as your Achilles heel. You mean to tell me at 0-4 you still thinking about let's run AJ Green out there and like nah. Pittsburgh Steelers went and traded for Minka Fitzpatrick last night.
Right.
You know, like they're preparing for the future because they don't have to pay that guy but 5.3 for the next 3 years. They're preparing for the future. Mason Rudolph is probably their guy. They were forced into this transition, but I don't know if the Bengals can sustain this paying all these guys 30 years old.
Right.
And you possibly could end up 0-4. You're losing like that.
Right.
49ers are a playoff team, but what does that mean to me though? What does that mean to you? Do you think it was more the Bengals are trash or the 49ers are just really, really good?
I think one thing that I brought up when we went into this game was, and I think a lot of people didn't really give them the credit, was that the 49ers offensive line is a good offensive line. I think they're a lot better than people gave them credit for, and I think one of the things we overlooked is the fact of the differences in terms of quality and talent between the Seattle Seahawks and the Cincinnati Bengals. So you've got guys like Mike McGlinchey, and when you rewatch the game, you can just see how physical some of those linemen were, especially on the screen passes where they went out and just demolished linebackers and cornerbacks out there. I think that was something that the Bengals didn't account for. When you talk about Carlos Dunlap and those guys like Geno Atkins, I still felt like they still made it a little bit tough on them when it came to going against their guys. There were some plays where Dunlap was in the backfield and things of that nature, but I didn't really see much from guys like Carl Lawson, Andrew Billings, Sam Hubbard. I didn't see much from those guys, but I really
Lawson went out with the hamstring injury though.
Okay, got you. Yeah, he did get hurt in the game. That's correct. But
also just noted too, B.W. Webb was seen with a cast after the game too.
Got you. I just think that from a talent perspective, they were just a better offensive line. So I think that still was an issue, and I think that the Bengals need to learn that it can't just be the Geno Atkins and Carlos Dunlap thing. Now, to your point in terms of the Bengals possibly being 0-4. I'm not gonna go that far. I'm not gonna go that far yet. But
let's say they go 2-2, right? Let's say
no. I'll go with your scenario that they're 0-4. I think if they are 0-4, right? I think you definitely have to consider blowing this up. But honestly, I don't know what direction this team really goes in because from my perspective, I thought Marvin Lewis being gone, a new coaching staff being in there. Maybe, that's the answer. But if it is 0-4, I think you do have to consider blowing it up and hitting the reset button on this team. Now, I honestly
I think if you don't make the playoffs, I mean, that's kind of crazy because it's his first year. But the age of some of these guys that we're talking about are, good. I'm telling you. When you go look at the tape on this, Geno does not look like Geno on Sunday. And I think a lot of that was just the fatigue, been out on the field so long and it being so humid there and everything like that.
Right.
But if they're not a playoff, and I thought about this before the season, if they're not a playoff caliber team, why are you still signing guys that are 30 years old on these, like Geos of the world, and all these guys on their third contracts and stuff, when and then we're gonna go into the Dalton discussion at some point too. As much as everybody wants to talk about the defense, just like they did last year, Dalton was trash to me. He was so off target. I showed a couple of highlights and I got bashed early, and this game is not Dalton's fault. But when it was 14-7, he's got Erickson wide open, underthrows him, for a touchdown. Instead, that's 3 points, right? But I'm just saying, long term, why would you keep on? If you're a businessman, right? This is the question you got to ask yourself. Why are you re-signing these guys at this age if they're not playoff caliber? And I know it's year one, but we were just sitting there saying, the coaching is not utilizing these guys and da-da-da-da, whatever right there. But when new coaching comes and this new offense comes, which now I also want to point out, everybody's running. Everybody's running. Like, Zach Taylor was thought to be like, everybody's running Rams offense. The reason why, like, the games I looked at on Sunday or whatever, everybody's running Rams offense. Three wide receivers on this side, one on the other, bunch formation. Everybody's running it. The Seahawks were just they didn't run it. And they don't got the personnel to run it. But 49ers sure as hell ran it, and they make you pick. Goodwin was running. He was doing his John Ross impression from last year. Stretching the field, make that guy get the hell away. We're going to throw a bubble out to that same side. So now you done cleared out. I done cleared out Kirkpatrick. He's way back 10, 20 yards now because Goodwin's so goddamn fast. He goes down there. Now I got all this open space, and I don't have the linebackers to cover that open field. And you can run that play all game for John Ross like for us now. You can run it right now. And everybody caught up to that Ram stuff. So, and everybody looked at that Patriots thing, and they absolutely annihilated, like, everything. Like, you could do it if you have a really good offensive line and go blow for teams. But a lot of teams I'm seeing already have figured out a lot of that crap. And the teams that aren't even running that stuff, like the Panthers and stuff like that, just look super mediocre. The Seahawks look super mediocre. Like, go watch some of these other games. A lot of these teams now, like the Bills, they're running that stuff. Like, everybody's running that stuff. So, like, we were thinking we're, like, so ahead of the curve. We got Zach Taylor. No, everybody's running that Ram stuff.
I think for me, I think one of the reasons when you talk about a rebuild, you have to think about the other factors that go into that. Like, you're seeing that happen right now in Miami. Why hold on to guys like Carlos Dunlap and Geno Atkins? I think part of that is because in the past, the Bengals don't have the best reputation when it comes to their older players. You talk about guys like the Takeo Spikes and the Corey Dillons. One aspect that is important with every team, no matter what, is culture. So to have those guys in there or have those guys be in a situation where you're going to rebuild and keep them along for the ride doesn't really do them justice in a sense. And it doesn't really put a good taste in their mouth, especially with a guy being 30. He wants to go to the Patriots or he wants to win a Super Bowl, right? So you take that part out.
And see, Geno's is a rare breed where I don't think he's that type of guy, though. But the average 30-year-old NFL player is that guy. But Geno, I don't think he's that guy. I think he just, he just wants to do his job. Be good, be really, really good at it, and let us all discuss it.
Here's the other side as well. We just watched Minkah Fitzpatrick the year after being in Miami request a trade. Like, that's the other side of it. The Tyler Boyds, the Joe Mixons, the William Jackson III, the Carl Lawsons that you're putting these building blocks on, the John Rosses, they're not going to want to stay here if it's a whole rebuilding process. They're going to look out and say, I'm a free agent. I'm Joe Mixon. The Eagles are throwing me this money. I'm going to go there. So that's one of the issues as well is Cincinnati has never been a desirable place for free agents. And the one thing, even though we haven't fared off well, there has been this culture where people actually want to come and play for Cincinnati and things of that nature.
Yeah, it's some hometown guys like Hubbard and Preston Brown for sure.
And the guys like Tyler Boyd, like I come from an era where guys like Tyler Boyd and A.J. Green, they were waiting for their first ticket out of Cincinnati because they weren't winning. Like, if you introduce an environment that is not winning and essentially just tanking, then you get what's happening in Miami right now where players completely do not want to play. And I think from a fan base...
check this out, though. From a Miami standpoint, now they just picked up another first-round draft pick. These dudes got like 5 or 6 first-round draft picks and got $180 million in cap space next year. They could go sign anybody that they want. They can draft 2 quarterbacks first round. Like they've acquired 6 first-round draft picks. I don't know if they're all 2000. They're not all 2020, but that's the other flip side of it. That
is the flip side. I agree.
And I'm only posing the question because people hit me with that all the time. They say, "Man, thank you." And I don't think it has to be that. I just asked that just for the conversation. I think you can still win with Geno, Dunlap, AJ Green, You know, but that can't be your core. And the
Right.
problem I think is like they're utilizing those guys too much in this time frame. And if you're utilizing those guys that much, they gotta be Tom Brady type level, like, you know, like Antonio Brown type game changing guys. They gotta be impact. Like, you cannot stop this guy, AJ Green level type guys, if you're going to be like that. And if Geno's playing like that, like he's playing good, but he's not playing excellent, then you can't waste that money, because that's two guys. You know, essentially, you could say before the season you could have traded Geno and got a first, right? I'm just throwing this out there. You could have got a first if you wanted to, and maybe something else. Who knows?
Right.
But the concept is he's worth two young players that you could essentially say, okay, this is a Sam Hubbard and this is another Carl Lawson for the same value, is what I'm trying to say. From a business perspective, the roster to me just doesn't make sense if they're not competitive. I think
one thing though is I totally agree with you that Geno and Dunlap didn't play their best games, but you played football before. You know that the defensive line and the secondary kind of work off of each other. So I feel like a lot of those plays were due to, in terms of them not getting to the quarterback, better offensive line play, and the fact that receivers were just running wide open. And I don't like the players. But if you had Aaron Donald in here and you still got Drake Kirkpatrick on as a cornerback, and Deebo Samuel hits you with that slant, like, he's not like the quarterback is already releasing the ball.
But don't you think that Aaron Donald would have had one highlight in that game, or two or three, or like whatever? I remember two highlights from Dunlap, one from Geno, the whole entire game. How many times was Jimmy G sacked?
I think only once in the game, I believe.
I don't even think it was one. How many times was he hit?
He wasn't hit much. But
I've only seen twice. So I'm just saying, like, the speed and how fast they can get to him, and you're countering that by saying, well, they ran into a really, really good offensive line. Yeah, well, there's a lot of good offensive lines coming up too. Like, you know what I'm saying? And like when they play the Rams, like the Rams offensive line is better than the 49ers. They're gonna blow. Like, if that's what a good offensive line looks like, they're gonna lose 50-0. If your best players are failing to make any contact with them, Drake Kirkpatrick could be the worst corner, or all these guys could be the worst corners or secondary. I think from the linebacker plays, Kyle Shanahan schemed it up perfectly. He put all the pressure on the linebackers to get across field, and it just I'm not saying that Geno's washed. That's not my argument. I'm not saying Dunlap is washed. That's not my argument. But if you're not making enough impact plays and you're paying them at that salary, it just can't work. The guys that get paid that much, like, that they're out there. You got guys like Eric Armstead and Solomon Thomas and stuff, plenty of highlights. And granted, they're going against a worse line, but think about how many people.
But you have to think about
how many first-round picks they got over there.
You have to think about the fact that they also have Richard Sherman. See, that's where, like, another thing when you really look at the game, another part of Shanahan's game plan, we always talk about it on here. Drake Kirkpatrick struggles with wide receivers with quickness and that
double move.
And they kept putting those receivers on him. They put Deebo Samuel over there. When he wasn't there, they put Marquise Goodwin over there. They did not attack William Jackson III. And that's what our issue is. Teams, if you notice when they game plan for us, they never attack William Jackson III. They completely go after Dre and anybody else there. And I don't want to be that guy that just blames everything on Dre, because it's not just Dre. But when these quick pitch receivers are coming off of the line and they're already open, you can't get Geno Atkins and Carlos Dunlap there faster enough if this guy is twitching and is wide open. Like, you look at the play where they scored the touchdown in the red zone. It was a pick play. William Jackson III goes with his guy. They took two quick guys out there. I think it was Deebo Samuel and Marquise Goodwin. They cross paths on the route. If you watch it, it was one of the plays that they scored on. Mm-hmm. William Jackson goes with his guy, Dre watches his guy like completely go wide open for a touchdown. Like things like that
and then looks around like, oh well, that was your man. Like, why
but in that same sense, they're not William Jackson III and Dre aren't giving them the help of containing the edge either. So you saw them bounce a lot of plays out there as well. But the 49ers, when you look back at the film, until the second half, they were not really running it up the middle like that. Like they tried to go away from the Genos and the Dunlaps, and when they did try to attack them on the run game, they attacked our corners. So that's the only thing. I get exactly what you're saying. When you're making that type of money, you have to have an impact on the game. But it's up to the Bengals coaching staff to have a real conversation with themselves and say, this isn't a Dre Kirkpatrick game. They're constantly out here throwing these quick receivers that he struggles with out here.
So what do you do? Like, what do you do? Put Ren Phillips out there? Like, what do you do with Dre Kirkpatrick?
I think what you do is you looked at like you said with the Steelers, they went and got Minka Fitzpatrick, right? Like, when are the Bengals going to make that move where it's like we have a glaring weakness?
Cordy Glenn.
And the Cordy Glenn thing, like, you've got, like you said, you talk about Trent Williams all the time. You talk about, we know what the issues are with this team. And to me, sometimes it might go above and beyond what's actually happened on the field. And we might have to look at the front office and say, if you know that Jalen Ramsey is out there, and I'm not saying that they're going to do it, but I fail to believe if you were to trade for a Jalen Ramsey, which I think in the locker room, that would be insane. That would be nuts. It's not happening. Obviously, him and AJ got into it. But if you put a guy like that there.
They're professionals. They'll get past that. That's not an issue.
If you put a Jalen Ramsey out there with a William Jackson III, it completely changes this defense. It makes those guys better. It makes those defensive linemen be able to have that impact because they're able to try to get there.
I don't know though. I want to believe that, but the culture and in the glaring thing that, like, this is what they do. They'll take Jalen Ramsey. They'll take William Jackson, and they'll run him on a full-out clear out. Now, Jalen Ramsey is a great tackler, and he doesn't get a lot of credit for that. He tackles very well. But they'll run him on a clear out. They'll isolate. They'll make sure everybody is blocked up except Preston Brown, Nick Vigil, and they'll just put somebody like Deebo Samuel out there in space. Like, the good coaches, I just don't think that's enough. Like, when I look at the Cowboys defense, like, yes, their strength is linebacker, but they have above-average corners. They, like, their secondary is pretty decent. But because their linebacker and their front seven is so strong, it just really takes – I just think that the reason why the front office won't make a move like that is because it's the same way we're having this conversation. It's like a question of you got 1 foot in and you got 1 foot out. You got 1 foot in saying, yeah, we care about our players. We're going to sign Dunlap and Geno. Mind you, the only reason why they are even able to sign a guy like that is because those guys, although they do want money, they're not the money-hungry guys that need and I don't even want to call them money-hungry. The average NFL player wants guaranteed money. You need to have an escrow account with the money up front to pay these guys. And the reason why they can't get free agents is because the Bengals don't have that money. They wait for the season to play itself out. They pay these guys weekly based on, hey, we sold 30,000 tickets. This is our profit from it. Boom. Here's your paycheck. Here's your paycheck. That's how the Bengals work on a week-to-week basis. It's the exact opposite of what you should do in America, like operate check to check for real. But the good owners that have a whole lot of money have money all to the side where they have $60 million guaranteed for Ezekiel Elliott, $50 million on the side for Amari Cooper, another $40 for Dak in case they get into a conversation like that. That's why the Bengals will never have it. So they have to rely on young players, I think, to make big impact. And if you're going to keep older guys that do take that pay cut or take that less guaranteed money or whatever, they absolutely have to smash a game apart. And and they're not, and they got the 1 foot in, 1 foot out. So the front office is saying, yeah, we could go get Jalen Ramsey, but what happens if Dalton goes down or something like that right now? We're screwed. We don't even know what we're going to do. A quarterback, like, they got all these different – well, I have a good answer for that. They just go draft a quarterback first round next year. But they're so hesitant in their moves, and they're so different. The average fan is a starter. I'm aggressive. Every day of my life, I'm super aggressive. You called me the other day and said, hey, they got these jerseys. Hey, Ace, I want this jersey, I want that. Like, you know, I don't really think about it. I just know what I want. You know what I'm saying? The Bengals don't operate like that, and it kills them every single time. They went and got Zach Taylor thinking like they got this brilliant offensive mind, and he might be a great coach. He might be good, but he's never going to have the pieces. I wanted to be set up like how the Rams were when they had Jeff Fisher. He comes out, and then they hire McVay or whatever. Immediately you saw Jared Goff's production go up, all these different things. I still stand by the Bengals winning 6-7 games, maybe 8, something like that, right? I still stand by that, even with an 0-2 start.
Right.
But the problem to me is that if you're 8-8 and you're signing these guys to these deals and you're just hoping that coaching gets them over the hope or hoping that something else changes with the same personnel, you're in a recipe for mediocrity all over and over and over again, and you'll never make a trade for Ramsey because you're so scared that if you do the Ramsey thing, then, oh, no, we won't have a first-round pick next year. So what? Your fan base is absolutely pissed and like
and they are not in a position to take a gamble with the fan base. I think, like you said earlier, this was the most embarrassing and worst thing that could happen for this front office and ownership because, and that's the other thing that I think too is it's already bad now. If we do a rebuild, like nobody's gonna go to the game.
But all right, but a soft rebuild though. Get rid of these guys that like, for one, Andy Dalton. I'm sorry, I have to say it. I've been holding it in. That guy's got to go. He's valuable. He is an asset. I say that from a business perspective. At the very least, a team like the Jets right now will give you a first-round pick if they feel – because their defense is not bad in the Jets. They are in a better position defensive-wise than we are currently right now. Even though they just lost, 20 points or whatever, but the play at quarterback was horrible. I think the fan base will applaud tanking – like in the Dolphins type of way, yeah, nobody would come, right? But the average person sitting at home, I think, would say, well, at least they have a plan. Like, I really feel like me and you and me more, I've never been that tank guy. I think you can keep your core guys. You're going to lose like a Mixon. You're going to lose some of these guys like that as their contracts come to a near, and you're going to have to move them and stuff like that. That's okay. There'll be more running backs. Like, I'm not afraid of that. You pay Tyler Boyd. There are certain core guys that you can still keep. And you made a good point. Are those guys still want to stick around? I don't care. If they don't want to stick around, demand a trade, whatever, move them too. Because at the end of the day, I'd rather be able to have assets that I can move and get something for than just letting guys go that we've been doing. We've been getting all these draft picks, and then what do? You drop your third-round draft pick, he just gets picked up on the waiver wire the next week. You drop your quarterback, he just gets picked up on the waiver wire next week. You drop anybody that's any worth a damn, the Patriots are going to take him, and they're going to run with his ass all the way to the Super Bowl. So aren't you tired of just, like, taking all this? Like, when are they going to smarten up and say, you know what, like, we need to go get this guy, and even if we can only keep him for, like, a year or something like that, the fan base itself, I think, would applaud that more so.
Applaud that.
I think more so than the average person in my comments. If anybody doesn't follow me on Instagram, once again, this is the Orange is the New Black podcast, Ace Boogie and Zim. We're keeping it really long today. But if you follow me like on Instagram, Zim_Whoday, I promise you, every single post, every time I ever post, that there's always one guy that says, why don't we trade AJ Green? And everybody in there kills him and says, AJ Green, and even me. I'm like, man, AJ Green's the GOAT. My son needs something to look up to. I want AJ Green's statue. AJ Green is never going to get a statue if they're going to continue the same front office play where they're not making aggressive moves. And the Pittsburgh Steelers are not an aggressive franchise when it comes to money, but if they have a glaring need, like how they went and got Joe Hayden or they got Minka Fitzpatrick or something, they will do it, and it makes sense. They only have to pay him $5.3 for the next 3 years. That is a very simple move that the Bengals could have made that doesn't cost them anything. And we're sitting there watching all these people. Like, we played Quan Alexander. I mean, we're watching Quan Alexander, who I wouldn't have paid that much money, but all the linebackers like Kendricks and all these guys like that weren't free agents or whatever, they didn't not once think for 1 second there they want to sign any of those guys at all. And now we're playing these guys, and they're beasting out. Like, Quan Alexander was all over the field. And the Bengals still are sitting there looking at a Devin Bush first round and just say, We'll let the Steelers just jump right in front of us and get him. We'll figure it out later. We don't really need linebackers. Zach says that we don't need linebackers. Cool. We don't need like when are they going to smarten up and say, look, we need to have a balanced team. Every position can't be a glaring hole or something like that. And that's the point I'm trying to make. I'm not saying blow the whole thing up, but AJ Green is worth a first-round draft pick and some more. And you know you're not going to playoffs. You're doing a disservice to him. You're doing a disservice to Andy Dalton's career. You're doing a disservice to all these players that have played so damn hard for the franchise by not giving them a better opportunity. And now you're just decreasing all of their value. Say A.J. Green comes back a little too early from an ankle injury, thinking somehow he can get us to 9-7, right? He hurts his ankle injury again. What good is A.J. Green to us from an asset standpoint? And I hate to think about him like that because that's my favorite player on the team. But at some point you got to say, man, I gotta make a move and get something for some of these guys. They let all of these guys just go for nothing. And at some point,
I agree with you. At some point,
when are you going to make that move? Like Dunlap, like Gino, like that could have been the time. You know, I don't know. That could have been extra picks. So then you do come back, you do get a Devin Bush, and you get the offensive lineman in the first round. How does that look? And and then you got 10 defensive linemen that you kept on the team anyway.
Right.
It got to be a change in the guards at some point.
Right. Well, as them said, we are getting pretty emotionally involved, and I think it's rightfully so after the San Francisco loss. Tons of thoughts on Bengals fans' minds at this moment. But Zim, before we head out, how do you think the Buffalo game will play out?
Not nearly as bad, but I just don't feel confident because I'm looking at the personnel that they have, and I feel like it's the same type of, like, go watch the Buffalo game. Everybody's running it. I know everyone thinks that Zach is super young, and, like, everybody caught on. And, you know, like, I made a comment last year. I said, man, the Dallas Cowboys are on to something. They got 4 elite linebackers last year, and then a guy like Amari Cooper doesn't really even move the needle for me, but they just gave themselves another weapon that they needed, and we got better weapons than that, to me, in my opinion.
Right.
But the difference is when the offense doesn't complement the defense at all, it's just a recipe for failure, and then the defense gets set up for failure. Right. And I just don't see – I can see it being a very close game. I don't think it'll be a blowout. I really think I think the Bengals are a better team, but it's so early in their I always feel like that talent wise. It's so early in the Zach Taylor era. This is the first time we're going to see a Zach Taylor, the coach that we think that he is, because now after a loss like that honeymoon period is over. Now they're talking about Shula. You know what I mean? Like now they're referencing, now we're going back to Shula. You know what I'm saying? So this is where we find out, and I don't think it bodes well for him. And then you talk about, I hate to look ahead, but then you're looking at week 4, possible A.J. Green return, Monday Night Football. Say you go out there and don't win, and you got A.J. out there. I can't help but to think about that.
Right. I think this is a make or break game for the season. I think that this is the biggest game of the season coming up. This decides between whether the Bengals will have to rebuild after this season or whether they can salvage this season. But with that being said, this is the Orange is the New Block podcast. Ace Boogie here, my co-host Zim Hude. You can find him at Zim_Hude on Instagram. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast. We'll be coming with more and tons of information and news updates and things of that nature. So be sure to subscribe. Be sure to leave us a review. You can find me on YouTube at New Stripe City. And I would say that we can end this with a bang, but man, that was a rough one. So Zim, what should we end this on?
Man, God bless you, fans. I hope you guys stick with the team. It's rough being a Bengals fan, but we're here for you guys, and I don't want anyone to take our comments, especially mine, and think that I'm trying to rag on them. I'm just giving you the reality of the situation. Like, this just does not look good for the future of Cincinnati, even with a win, it's just like that put a really bad taste in everybody's mouth, and it brings up a lot of questions with these guys, and that's the first thing I kept on thinking about. It's like not even like a blow it all up thing, but like what does the future of this team hold? We'll find out soon.
All right, we're out.